And of course, GST 2.0, that's the big story that we're tracking for you this morning. Prices of kitchen staples to electronics, from medicines and equipment to automobiles, will all get cheaper from today as reduced GST rates on about 375 items come into effect. Now, in his address to the nation yesterday evening, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called the tax cut a Bachat Utsav, or a savings festival. Listen in to what Prime Minister said.
हमारे देश के गरीब, मध्यम वर्गीय लोग, न्यू मिडिल क्लास, युवा, किसान, महिलाएं, दुकानदार, व्यापारी, उद्यमी, सभी को ये बचत उत्सव का बहुत फायदा होगा। यानी त्योहारों के इस मौसम में सबका मुंह मीठा होगा। देश के हर परिवार की खुशियां बढ़ेगी। मैं देश के कोटि-कोटि परिवारजनों को नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स की और इस बचत उत्सव की बहुत-बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
Right, so it's not just a Bachat Utsav or a savings festival. Now, coupled with a hike in income tax exemption to income up to 12 lakh rupees given in the budget, Prime Minister Modi also said that Indians are now in for a double bonanza. First, the income tax cut, and now savings by way of GST cut. Let's listen in.
अब गरीब को, न्यू मिडिल क्लास को एक तरह से डबल बोनांजा मिल रहा है। जीएसटी कम होने से अब देश के नागरिकों के लिए अपने सपने पूरे करना और आसान होगा।
Now remember, there will now be only a 5% and an 18%, just two tax slabs under the new GST, of course. And there's also this 40% demerit goods, a 40% tax on demerit goods, which the government has finally gone ahead and cleared. But in good news, most everyday items are going to become cheaper. The Prime Minister also said that the cut in GST rates and the hike in income tax exemption limit will help households save as much as 2.5 lakh crore rupees annually. Now, from today, mass consumption items, these include ghee, paneer, butter, namkeen, ketchup, jam, dry fruits, coffee, as well as ice creams, as well as aspirational goods like televisions, air conditioners, washing machines, as well as cars. All of these are going to become cheaper. Now, most FMCG companies have already announced reduction in prices in view of GST rationalization. Meanwhile, automobile companies have already passed on the benefits, where GST rate has been slashed to 18% from the 28% earlier for small as well as mid-sized cars. But also not great, because the government has upped the tax on ultra-luxury items as well as sin goods that will now attract as much as 40% GST. Now, coming back to Prime Minister Modi's address yesterday, he also made a clarion call to citizens to buy Swadeshi goods to promote Make in India as an economic imperative that will boost the country's MSME sector. Let's listen again to what Modi said yesterday.
आज जाने अनजाने हमारी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में बहुत सी विदेशी चीजें जुड़ गई है, हमें पता तक नहीं है। हमारे जेब में कंघी विदेशी है कि देसी, हमें पता ही नहीं है। हमें इनसे भी मुक्ति पानी होगी। हम वो सामान खरीदें जो मेड इन इंडिया हो, जिसमें हमारे देश के नौजवानों की मेहनत लगी हो।
Well, we have two very special guests joining me this morning. Subhomoy, Bhattacharjee, author and contributing editor at the Business Standard, is with me this morning. Mitali, Nikore, founder and chief economist, Nikore Associates, will also be joining us shortly. But Subhomoy, to you first. Nothing exactly new that we heard from Prime Minister Modi yesterday. So was this a sales pitch to get consumers to spend more during the festive season that kickstarts from today? Or do you think it's more of a reiteration of Make in India with his Swadeshi call?
Well, lots of people have been saying that basically it is sort of, reiterating the GST theme and sort of enforcing or rather pushing it forward. However, I look at it differently. The Prime Minister doesn't usually make comments unless it's very necessary. Why is this sudden pitch? Sure, there's a Navratri coming along, there's the GST has a very major change. The way to look at it, the way to read it, think is that the tantrums, the geopolitical tantrums have created a huge uncertainty for most economies. We are going through a fantastic phase of growth, but to ensure that that growth continues, there's a lot that will, first of all, need to be reset. Second, despite all the efforts, there's going to be a pressure on the India in the second and the third quarters, which the RBI data is also showing. Because of that, it's very important for the government to give out the message that, there's going to be pressure, there's going to be problems. Especially notice that he's talked a lot about the MSME sector, which is the exports backbone.
That's right.
Now, that sector is going to be hit very badly because of the political problem, the geopolitical problems that have come along, the US issues and all that. Because of those, it is very necessary at this stage to sort of bolster people's hopes and expectations. Now, GST has actually done it. It is not something like a wish in the, wishing that or hoping that some things good will come. There's clearly money that the government has put on the table, 2.5 trillion, as he put it.
Yeah.
These are going to be of very valuable support to the people. It's going to make them feel that they have the government's back. They have the government's back and at them, and that is a very important feeling of hope and expectation. Because now will be the difficult period. We're already seeing many of the leading indicators coming along fairly soft after the first quarter's high growth.
Right.
Now, in circumstance, one would expect that, or rather, this is a smart government tactic which Prime Minister Modi has done to say that we have done it, we have helped you, we are there to help you. Right now, go ahead, feel nice, take advantage, and in fact, as they do so, that also helps the economy because it sort of pushes the consumption up. My consumption is your production. So definitely, all of those factors will be coming in, which is why this was a very opportune moment to sort of make people feel that, look, things are okay. The domestic situation is fine. Now we will take care of what's going to happen globally.
Right.
Very significant point, very significant necessity. It wasn't just GST and GST, therefore, which is coming along. So that's very strong.
All right. Mitali, let's take this point forward and you know what Subhomoy just elucidated for our viewers. That there's definitely a feel good and all is well sort of a sentiment that Prime Minister Modi is trying to percolate down to the last consumer in the country. But the timing, the GST cut coinciding with the tariff pressure from Donald Trump. Now, some would say the timing is too perfect, but the question really is that is there a sort of correlation that you can draw between the negative impact likely on India's current account deficit, and will that be offset with this domestic consumption boost which comes by way of the GDP, of the GST cut?
No, absolutely. There are, in fact, estimates that are going around, and we have also made some estimates at our end at Nikore Associates to understand, what is going to be the quantum of the consumption boost vis-a-vis the tariffs. But I can sort of say this, like, let's try to explain this through an example. I was recently visiting a lot of export-oriented clusters in Uttar Pradesh for some field work, and I spoke to people on the ground. There is currently a very dampener. There's a damp sentiment because a lot of those clusters are export oriented clusters. Now, in many cases, what happens is, say, for example, carpets, right? There are very high value carpets which are now accumulating in inventory, and they are not actually getting sold because you don't have that sort of a buyer that is available apart from the US. There are very few, even international buyers, that can meet that price which they were getting in the US. So, will the carpets cluster, consumption or sales be offset with a GST reduction? It is unlikely, right?
Right.
Because at that price point, that's not going to happen. But At the same time, the neighboring cluster, which is a power loom cluster, they will suddenly see a boost in their sales because they will start to see the domestic sales going
Sure,
up. So
sure.
at the end of the day, when we look at a macro level, there's definitely going to be a positive impact, a net positive impact of the GST reduction
Right.
because of the domestic sales going
But
up.
this net positive impact, Subhomoy, how long is this likely to last? Because one would say that how many new carpets, the example that Mitali just gave, how many new carpets will you buy, or how many new clothes will you buy, or how many times are you going to purchase another air conditioner, another refrigerator, another car? So do you think this positive, net positive impact that Mitali is talking about is going to be short-lived, just about 1 quarter or so, or is this going to be long-term?
First of all, even if you just go with the government's numbers, 2.5 trillion as a multiplier of that,
Yeah,
that's going to be substantial. Remember, our MPC is very high, our
right.
propensity to consume. So this actually has a very strong momentum. Also, the fact that when people get into a virtuous cycle of consumption, that stays on.
Right.
These are like sort of one-off. These are not coming along as check from the government. For instance, what happened in USA post-COVID, that there was a check from the government. And as long as that lasted, the boom lasted. The once the check stopped, it sort of went down like a thud.
Absolutely.
Here there's not a single time check. It's come the reduction in prices has been done sustained. Now look at what can happen from here. Once the reduction of prices has happened, consumption takes off, then obviously production levels tend to rise. Once that happens and inflation, however, is low, that gives the Reserve Bank of India the cushion that it needs to think of a rate cut. Once that also happens, there is a next round of benefit that comes in, which is that the cost of production is further sweetened.
Right, because
It
cost
also
of capital goes down.
Absolutely. Even for people, and we are talking about typically the middle class and the lower middle class.
That's
And for
right.
them, they are the ones who take things on rent, on loan. They depend heavily on loan
Right.
because that economy runs entirely on interest, unlike the salaried people who really don't look at it in that way. So
Right.
for them, a softer interest rate regime has a very powerful incentive to be able to go out and do their work. From now on till March, it's a continuous series of production going along on the festivals, pushing the production and pushing consumption. So hopefully this is hit at the right sweet spot to be able to keep on giving that momentum.
All
If
right.
this is beyond one quarter, then we're already on the home stretch.
All
That's my
right.
point.
All right. Well, Mitali, I want to leave this conversation right here, but not before asking you, is there a shopping list? Is there a cart that you already got ready? What is the next high value purchase that you are likely to make with this GST cut?
So, Kartik, it has to be Swadeshi. And I've just come back from Uttar Pradesh. So, I've actually done my high value purchases of chicken curry. And, all chicken curry, hand woven textiles from the clusters around Lucknow. I was visiting several of them and picked up one thing at least at each of them, whether sari, suit, or gifting items. So definitely it's the Swadeshi chicken curry, Swadeshi textiles, Swadeshi jewelry, gems, footwear. Swadeshi is on top of my list.
All right. And Shubhomoy, Swadeshi, pretty much everything that we get in India in any case is Swadeshi. We are making our own cars, we are making our own refrigerators, we are making our own electronics, we are making our own iPhones. So in any case, pretty much everything that you buy in the country has a massive Swadeshi component to it. So is there going to be a further push towards, let's say, schemes like PLI, etc. now as this reform journey has kick-started yet again? Are we going to see a bigger boost to schemes like PLI in your opinion?
The government this year has given out a good amount of money for several things already. There's been a 1 lakh crore money that's been given out because of the income tax rebate.
Right.
There's this GST impact. Then there is and there's the 8th pay commission impact that's going to come.
Right.
So the government finances are already stretched. To expect that they would be opening the purse even further can actually mean a challenge for the fiscal deficit numbers, and we do
Right.
not want them. So, therefore, those I think there should be and there would be a sense of caution. Already, in fact, the exporters also would be asking for some amount of subsidy in for all around. So, essentially, there is a lot of pressure for the government to try to meet in terms of consumption there itself. So,
right.
I'll hedge my bets here.
All right, Subhomoy, Bhattacharjee, as well as Mitali, Nikore, thank you so much. As always, pleasure having you here with us on News 9.